On this episode, we discuss change management, AV network best practices, and the new AVIXA board. All that and more on EdTech. EdTech episode 124, Change is Good. Hello, AV friends. Welcome to another episode of EdTech. As always, we have our panel of awesome higher ed AV professionals. Ernie Bailey. How you doing, Ernie?
Aaron, I'm doing great. Hope you're doing as well.
Absolutely. It's Friday when we're recording, so weekend's almost here. And we also have Rob Rasberry. Hi, Rob.
Hey, Aaron. How's it going? Always great to be here.
Absolutely. And today's special guest joining us for this episode is Trevor Phaneuf from Drexel University. Welcome, Trevor.
Hey, Aaron. Happy Friday.
Yes. So, Trevor, tell us what you do over there.
Sure. I am the Director of IT for the Antoinette Westphal of College of Media Arts and Design. So I deal with everything from projection to servers.
All right. Well, and Rob, Trevor, and I had the lovely pleasure of actually spending a few days together at Extron over in Anaheim earlier in this week. And thank you to Extron. You put on a wonderful event full of some old AV friends and some new ones. And it was just a great time all around. What did you guys think?
Amazing. I mean, it's always a great thing when you get a bunch of people together and most of them are using the same infrastructure and platform, and you get to interact and take a look at how other institutions set up their systems, sort of corroborate with whatever kind of problems you're having and bounce it back and forth. And it also helps when, the manufacturer goes a little deep dive into, what they're doing. The best thing that I got out of it, besides learning more about Extron, was the peer cases, which I think were fantastic.
I agree. It was incredible, but I really was not expecting that great of a networking component. Just absolutely incredible.
Yes, that's the technology is amazing. Getting to see the case studies and like the stuff in action is great. But yeah, always the people. Like I love the people. But awesome. Yeah, it was a great experience all around. But I guess let's jump to what the people are here for, to listen to us talk about some articles we read. So this first one comes to us from the AV Buyers Club, written by Scott Tyner, Navigating Change Management in the AV Industry. So some of this, was this conversation started a little bit when we talked about the CrowdStrike situation. But Scott shared with us, a little more in depth of a change management that's kind of realistic. How about you guys? What are you using, a formal change management like system on your campuses, or is it a little more?
We're somewhere in between on our campus, Aaron. While our IT department does have a very structured change management group and follow that for anything that's going to be campus wide, we're kind of on the edge of it. And depending on how large of a change we're doing to classrooms or into the AV technology infrastructure, we at least make sure that the change management board knows what's going on, and they kind of may sort of bless it on the side. And if we're doing something that's going to impact campus-wide, yes, we will go through the full procedure. But everyone on my team has been through change management training. They know all the procedures and all that. So we at least do it internally within our group to make sure everything is done properly and everybody on the team knows what's going on. But as far as the structured part, we don't get into that all the time, but we do know it. We're familiar with it. We have a standing invite to the weekly meetings.
It's sort of almost like a bit of like the scientific method kind of thing that's going on. You have to go through protocols. You have to, go through certain channels. Scott's article is excellent. I'm not sure that we're as straight to it, sticking to it as much as it is, but you do have paths you have to follow. If you're going to do a change, what type of change is it? Does it affect the security? Do you have to get it vetted through InfoSec? Do you have to go through network infrastructure, whether it's dealing with servers or security, that kind of thing? I think it's pretty much sort of the same path that everybody follows. And Scott just sort of laid it out in a very, very specific manner, which was nice.
I will say it is challenging, especially on the academic side, with our requirement to be agile in the sense that changes are coming from our faculty every day and we have to adapt. And change management takes time and effort. And sometimes we have an event that evening that we have to make work one way or another.
No, absolutely. I'm right there with you. But some process is better than no process. So I like that Scott did kind of distill down the large, cumbersome kind of process to a pretty succinct, here's a couple of the important steps to follow. So that was really good, because our IT team definitely follows a much greater narrowed down, they have their process down and document it very well. Whereas the AV team, we tend to be a little more loosey-goosey, depending on what the stuff is. But that was an excellent reminder to at least make sure we have down in a plan, essentially, as opposed to just ripping off some changes and then being like, oh, that didn't work, now what?
There's a line, and I think it's very dependent on context, and it comes back to risk tolerance. How much risk are you willing to accept?
And I think it depends on scope. Is it affecting a classroom, an office, one or two rooms, or is it going to be like a campus wide kind of, if something that's going to affect? And I do not advocate for my way of doing things. I certainly would think that a better process is really the way to go.
No, I think that, what Trevor says, scale, context of what it is, who does it affect? If it affects just AV, then it's within your department, within our departments that we deal with it. If it goes beyond, then you have to go to, separate channels to deal with, like I said, networking or InfoSec or whatever it has to be. But as Trevor said, you have to be agile. And everything's changing so quickly and so rapidly that you have to be very adaptable, but very savvy as to know, okay, this is how I'm going to change this, and know when, okay, I can deal with this on my own turf, and when to know, hey, I've got to get other buy-in from this in order to make this change happen.
Now, we do have some procedures in place for those emergency situations, in that, we use Teams chat across our campus, and we've got a group set up with our network engineering people and with our workstation support team, and several other groups like that. Or if we've got a group of faculty in a certain area that's going to be affected, we can hit all of them at one time with a quick chat, say, hey, this just went down, this system failed, or we have to make this change for tonight or for next week. This is what we're going to do. Please let us know if you have any concerns or issues. And we get a real quick communication path going. And then, sometimes, someone high up will come back and say, this needs to go through the change advisory board. And we will, at that point, take it there. But if it's an emergency situation, we go ahead and deal with it, and we notify the change board that things are coming or things are happening.
And do you think it from institute to institute, it could change potentially depending on where their AV team sits? Because I feel like if you fall under the IT umbrella, where they are very strict with their protocols, I'd imagine that, and I do fall under an IT team, but it's a IT team that's under, we don't fall under the central umbrella, so we're a little.
So we are centralized. We're, IT, there's one IT department for the entire campus, and there's one AV team under that IT group for the entire campus. We take care of everybody. There's not individual departments having their own support. So I think that probably makes it a little bit easier to know the communication paths and everything, and make things happen. We've got a change coming up, possibly for the summer, starting next summer, that we're starting now, not necessarily with the real change advisory board, but with another board very similar. They're looking at changing the response software that we've used, PowerPoint, and then Point Solutions after they got bought out. And there's a possibility it will be changing to something else. So we go through a complete review of all the different products that are out there and meet with our own change advisory board for the academic side. If you called them a change advisory board, they wouldn't know what you're talking about. But it consists of some of the senior faculty, the deans. Every dean's office has a representative, as well as our power faculty get involved, and they review what we're doing and give us guidance. It's not our job to tell them what they have to use. They tell us what they want to do, and we help them find the best solution for it.
That's a great approach, and probably more. We should all always be doing that. Like, not necessarily saying what to do, but like taking it all into advisement and making recommendations. Next one comes to us from AVNation. AV network design and implementation. So this one essentially was about the best practices in design and implementing an AV network. Lots and lots of great information in there. But for you, what are your best practices, or anything that you would add that might have been kind of missing from there?
Well, I really enjoyed this article and wish we could make it work all the way across all the time. There are times we can't, but I would like something like this that we could send out to the AV manufacturers, where things will work across networks and across subnets. We had a company approach us about switching to their brand of displays. Very good price, very nice devices, but they cannot be managed across a subnet. And I've got to be able to, remote in, turn them on, off, change channels or volume or inputs remotely. And they won't do that. And, we've had some other products like that we've just abandoned because they didn't want to fit into the networks. And we're part of the main campus network, and we're a primary hospital. And we've got to work within that network structure, which is a very rigid structure, but it also helps us on the AV side when we want to talk to them. And, as long as we have a structured plan, it's easy to work with. And they added a new advanced, which is a level above senior, network architect. And we started talking to him about what we wanted to do. And his answer was, at my previous place, when we started using Crestron, this is how we did it. Finding someone who knows AV in a senior networking role was wonderful. And our life got a whole lot easier when they brought him in, because he understands what we're wanting to do, how it works, and how it's important on the academic side of the hospital.
You brought up a great point about equipment not communicating across subnets. I guess maybe their typical customer is really only working on a smaller scale, or it's one building or something like that, and not like massive campuses where you need to be interconnected across different subnets because potentially every building has a different one, or AV equipment is on its own subnet. And that I kind of not really thought about that. That's really...
That was the approach we took, was when we started rolling out the converged network. We did isolated VLANs specifically for AV data and AV control. That's helped a lot, and also just in terms of security, nothing is routable outside of those subnets. But you're right, how is that going to scale? Because you can't use a completely flat structure across an entire campus. So you're still going to need to jump through subnets at some point.
Yeah, it's interesting because at Drexel, we're still trying to sort of catch up, at least in my group, the central classrooms, and we're setting up to make the leap to AV over IP. Trevor's already done it. There's another group that's done it. And so we're taking a look at what they've done to get some lessons learned, because I do have classrooms in a bunch of different buildings all over campus, and potentially, depending upon how things go, we still have a site that's really downtown. So having the separate subnets and those VLANs is very important. It's going to be very important.
Yeah, you said like the key word like of recent times, AV over IP, and yeah, all that multicast traffic is the network needs to be prepared to handle that.
Yeah, I had sort of gone down through the article. I don't know if there was mention, and maybe Ernie or Aaron and Trevor, you can correct me on this. Did they talk about specific equipment, switches, capabilities, that kind of thing? Because those kinds of things are super important. I mean, if your switch can't handle the protocol or the traffic, what good is it going to be? And I don't know if I don't remember seeing any suggestions about how to look at that.
No, you're right. Yeah, I don't recall seeing that. But yeah, the just selection of switches to begin with is, and it's definitely a conversation that has to be had with the networking teams, because a lot of times they'll have their switches, their list of switches that they want to use. And then there's this list of switches that you can use based on what manufacturer's technology you're using, or which ones have already been vetted and they know can be used. Since vetting a new one can be a little time consuming. And a lot of times when we're doing projects, we need to like get stuff ordered right away and don't really necessarily have that extra time to have a manufacturer vet something completely different, switch wise. And then they're not all created equal. So then when you're trying to pick from one list and be like, nope, it's not here, or this one would be great, and your networking team's like, no, sorry, that doesn't fall within our acceptable switch category. So yeah, it's definitely communication is key when it comes to those sorts of things.
Yeah, basically they'll let us use whatever switch we want if it stays within an individual AV system. But if we're going to connect it outside or anything like that, connect it to the rest of the campus or even to the next classroom over, we have to use the campus approved switch. So what we do now basically is if we're trying a new product, we will get a demo of it in. We've got several of those switches they allow, and we will just make sure it'll pass everything. And, fortunately, we do use, we're having to pass medical information and everything else. So we've got name brand, high quality switches. So we have not run into that problem. Even trying to get some proprietary AV signals through them seems to be fine.
Yeah, Ernie, you mentioned something interesting. I hadn't really considered it. What are the implications with things like HIPAA with this, right? Because I'd imagine you'd be susceptible to some kind of man-in-the-middle attack to that. Somebody could...
Our subnet is locked down to AV and it's not accessible to the internet. It's only on the intranet. We've got specific holes pushed through, like for Crestron's XIO cloud to get pushes and things, but that was very specific. We worked, we got a close working relationship with our network security team, but yes, so HIPAA comes into anything and everything we talk about. We have, HIPAA and FERPA both. Fortunately, I haven't found anything that is HIPAA compliant that's not FERPA compliant. It might be the other way around, but if we meet the HIPAA requirements, we've pretty much met whatever. So, we do look at anything on our network. We make sure there's no paths coming in. We manage our passwords. We use Bitwarden and follow all the campus protocols on passwords on every piece of equipment that we've got. So, user as username and admin as a password does not work. That has changed immediately. Like you said, HIPAA comes in on anything and everything we do.
Yeah, when you only have to deal with kind of like personal information, it's not as it's kind of like tends to be a little more on the user to like, don't be silly. Don't let out certain information, but yeah, when you're on dealing with medical campus and federal regulations, a little different. The next piece is from AV Magazine over on avinteractive.com. AVIXA unveils board and leadership committee for 2025. What do we expect from this new board?
I don't know where to sort of start with this because, we are in the higher ed space. And obviously, when AVIXA and technology, you're dealing with technology, and a lot of that technology is driven by corporate, by, that industry. I would expect that, with the move to everything on the internet, and on the network, that they would focus, more on maybe innovations and things of that sort that relate to creating that infrastructure on the network, maybe going above and beyond just simple AV over IP or control protocols. Not sure what that would be, but I think also, maybe hopefully they'll look at setting up some more, more robust training. I mean, they do a great job already, but I'm just, you're sort of reaching at straws sometimes unless you really dig down and see what each of the, the new board members is doing. AVIXA is a great, organization. So, I would expect great things from these people.
I would like to see them, continue to work with education. They started out as AV dealers to education. That was the start of the organization 80 some years ago. And it's been through a lot of iterations. I was on the board years ago, so that's why I'm wondering what I should say. But I'd like to see, when I first really started getting active, I've been a member of the organization for 40 years. But I've been probably active on committees and the board and item writing for the tests and stuff like that for probably about 25 years. So when I first started, they were going back into really emphasizing the education market and allowing the technology managers access to manufacturers on the show floor. At one point, if you walked in and you had on the green education tag, they'd hand you a T-shirt and send you on and not want to talk to you. Well, they finally realized, at one point, we kind of did a big push at some leadership events and told them, they saw end user on us and they said, oh, Sony was there. Oh, so you buy a TV every 7 years. I said, no, I bought 150 last month. And they started listening to us when they found out that, an end user had a different definition in this environment than, than in the retail market. We're the ones that work, like we talked about earlier, between the faculty and the manufacturers to find the right solution. And we'll bring that as an enterprise solution to our schools. And, I think they had 7 of us there that over the last 2 years had spent like $12 million. And you get their attention, and I hope they continue to pay attention and let us talk to their design people and say, hey, my school would really buy more of these if you did this. And they've been at that point before. I don't know if we're there right now. I'd like to see more of that. And it doesn't just have to be education. I mean, you'll see the same needs in corporate. Listen to the technology managers, whether it's, like I said, higher ed, K-12, corporate, whoever, don't just manufacture something pretty. Don't keep changing your models. Just use a new model number and change the angle of the corners. Give us some meat. If they continue to push towards that and, real true AV solutions, the network stuff we talked about, work with the manufacturers and stuff to have AV standards that meet the rest of the world.
Ernie, you made a good point just with the manufacturer communication. Depending on who it is, and there's some that are a lot better than others, you'll get that hand wavy response of, oh, go talk to an integrator or go talk to a reseller. Just trying to push sales. But I think that relationship between those of us who are doing the deployment and the people who actually make the thing is really important.
In looking at it, I noticed that there's a person that's, from SPL, and then they have like a Microsoft person. Looks like they have somebody that has a manufacturer for a specific device. So that is sort of a nice mix of who you would deal with. Yeah. So that's really nice. I noticed that. So hopefully they can leverage that, and make, the connection to us, the users, and, with the organization, a better thing.
Yeah. I'd like to see a bigger emphasis on the internal education, the CTS, CTSI, CTSD,
yeah,
the ANP now, and other certifications like that. Can we make them stronger? What can we do? And are we meeting the needs of the industry through the education?
There were a couple of familiar faces on there. Some I wasn't familiar with, but one that did stand out, Kristen Bidwell. She is on the board of Next Level Learning, which was founded by George Chaco and Rich Miller over at Pace University. And that organization is all about trying to introduce AV to younger kids and hosting some events to really kind of get the word out to the new gen of kids to try to get them interested in the AV industry. And so I think that's great that hopefully she brings that energy also to AVIXA to try really to start promoting to the next gen of AV professionals.
I was thinking about that too. The CTS is great certifications, but what is the entry level? What's the entry point, and what does that pathway look like? I'd like to see some guidance of how can we best get our teams involved and trained and brought up to speed, for somebody who is brand new to this.
The other thing that I noticed about the new board members is looks like it's a pretty diverse group, which is extremely encouraging. I think that, there's always been a strong group within AVIXA for diversity, and it's good to see that now it's pushed out and extended onto the board. So that's really exciting to see.
Well, this has been another fantastic episode. Great discussions all round. Now, if someone wants to reach out to you, Trevor, after this episode to kind of keep these discussions going, where might they reach out to you?
Sure, you can find me on LinkedIn, or feel free to email me at trp67@drexel.edu.
And Ernie, how about you?
You can find me also on LinkedIn.
And Rob?
What they said, LinkedIn.
Fantastic. And I appreciate you watching this episode or coming in and listening to it. And as for me, you can find me on LinkedIn, on X at Smearin_off_ice, and each month here on AVNation's EdTech podcast that can be found on YouTube or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. See you next time.
The network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
This is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation.
Hi, this is Jennifer Goodyear
and Erica Carroll
from the Women in AV podcast, where we are encouraged by the incredible stories of women in AV.
Listen in on fun, empowering conversations as we chat with inspiring women, breaking barriers and creating their own path in the industry.
Check out Women in AV on avnation.tv or wherever you get your podcasts.